Ladies and gents, and welcome to CG Reaction. And this is Brief History of Austria, Strong Language. So there is a strong language in this video by the channel Guy Bloke. He's a guy, he's a bloke. A brief history recap of country that successfully made the world believe that Hitler was a German and Beethoven an Austrian. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, when I first think of Austria, first thing comes to my mind is Hitler, and that is true. People blame, Hitler was from Germany. No, man, he was from Austria. But yeah, that is true. What do I know of Austria? Well, obviously Hitler, Holy Roman Empire. For a long time it was a powerhouse, Austria. KTN, Aloma Bike Duke. So I know KTM is from there. And World War I started from there. Archduke of Austria got shot and World War started. Some people get pissed off whenever I say that. Like, that's not, there were many reasons behind it. But yeah, technically there was a start point that started it all. And regardless of World War was inevitably going to happen, that's not the point. The point is it started from there. So yeah, Austria, where World War I started, and chain reaction led to World War I, World War II, and it was all just horrible. Not that I'm blaming Austria or anything. How the hell am I going to blame Austria when Austria's Archduke got shot? He didn't want to get shot. So whenever I say, like, people like get defensive, like, why are you saying about Austria like that? I'm not blaming Austria, come on. So yeah, this was the video.
Right. My name is Schrödinger, which is German for I don't expect you to know jack shit about history, so I'll try and make this as short and as easy as possible for you. Now, do you know where you left off last time?
I think we were,
Never mind. Let's start with Austria. The hell is that? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Austria is that little shit that always starts to cackle whenever someone blames Germany.
Yes, come on, man, you don't know Austria, really? Austria even today is not some just insignificant country in some third world country that nobody knows about. Austria is still significant, come on, man. You should know Austria. If you know any European countries, you should know what Austria is.
For Hitler or World War I, that little guy was no way so small and insignificant though. In fact, it was once one of the greatest empires of Europe, but I guess you win some, you lose some. Ain't that right, Great Britain? Anyway, our story begins at around 1200 AD.
Why so late?
Okay, first off, we're not getting anywhere if you keep interrupting your teacher. Secondly, the centuries before that were pretty much just the Romans noticing, dude, there's people in the hills! Then conquering the shit out of that land just to get run over by barbarians, who in turn got run over by other barbarians, pretending to be Romans. No, Austria first appears as a cute little duchy in the Holy Roman Empire in 1156, gradually blobbing out of its neighboring duchies until eventually having enough influence to become emperor themselves. A title to which they will hold on to until the end of the HRE in the early 19th century.
Yeah.
That's a long-ass time.
Damn right that is. They managed to do that using something that I like to call the "we can't war everyone, so we are just going to marry everyone of importance" policy, resulting in the bloodline of the Habsburgers, the great royal family of Austria, being all over the goddamn place. There were Spanish Habsburgers, Burgundian Habsburgers, Habsburgers from the Netherlands, Hungary, Italy. Look, this is how incest happens! When you have so many bloody relatives that you can't even say which one's which and just...
Yeah, I mean, kings and queens marry only kings and queens for, political purposes. But that all really narrows down who to marry, isn't it? And over time it will cause issues. I mean, isn't the, British queen right now is German? So that happened a lot. People married each other in the countries to, just either, keep the peace or, increase the relations between two countries. It was always political.
just roll with it.
It didn't help Napoleon though. Napoleon married, Austria's, daughter of Austria's king, but didn't matter. He still rallied against him, which was surprising because if Austria was with Napoleon, I like to think Napoleon wouldn't have lost in the end.
Anyway, through these family ties, Austria was pretty damn close to forming some kind of universal monarchy, which would have secured their power over the HRE and most of Europe once and for all. And it would have worked if it wasn't for the Ottomans banging at Vienna's back door in 1529. And while that little neighbor dispute between the two most powerful nations in Europe at the time raged on for roughly 200 years, other nations had the possibility of reforming themselves so that they could stand on their own against Austria, which was still busy defending the empire. One particular contestant became the newly found Prussia, which eventually became the great counterpart in the HRE. So after defeating the Ottomans, the King of Austria victoriously turned around at some point in the early 18th century and said, "Oh balls, what happened to my empire? Fuck! Brandenburg got huge! And the hell happened to Bohemia? Oh, we ate it." But France looks slightly angrier than usual. What the fuck? Spanish Habsburgers are gone too? What happened to our bloodline? Nearly went extinct. How the hell did that happen? Now what do you mean we still have no legal heir? Well, you know what? Fuck it. Women can become ruler now. Sir, you don't even have a daughter. Shut up, you'll see! And thus Maria Theresia claimed the Austrian throne in 1740.
So you're just gonna throw names at us and expect
Yeah, first of all, like he said, if he didn't have any daughter, how did she become the queen? Was it some cousin or distant cousin or something like that? That could have been possible. Yeah, the kids are true. That is the biggest issue in school, isn't it? Why people hate history in the first place in school. I was one of them in school that, most of thing it was names. Always this and that, and man, I don't care about these people. You're supposed to tell me the importance of why this place is and what happened, not just throw names at me. In school, people emphasize more on throwing names than what actually happened in those around time. People care about what are the people that caused it and what people were more important behind something happened rather than focusing on what happened there. That's the biggest issue in school. Rather than throwing names, I mean, obviously names, remembering names is important, but I think what happened in the past, in which country, and what was the, ideological reason why it happened, that should be more important.
us to remember them?
Of course! Look, I'm trying to make this easier for you lot, but I can't talk my way around the more important people in history, not without losing consistency anyway. It wasn't surprising that the other rulers of the HRE weren't too happy with the fact that a woman was now head of the empire. Most importantly, Friedrich II of Prussia decided that he is having none of that and declared war over the succession on the throne. Well, admittedly, all he wanted was Silesia, but the first reason was more something the other monarchs could get behind. Soon this war stretched over all of Europe, and after 8 years it pretty much ended on a draw, and Maria kept the emperor title. Well, technically her husband became emperor, but you know how it is. Well, that was pointless. Not so much for Prussia though, they got to keep Silesia and thus were now officially one of the big guys in Europe. The following years, Prussia and Austria repeatedly smashed their heads into each other without getting really anywhere. Enlightened absolutism was doing its thing in Europe, so at least socially things began to move. Poland got split between Prussia and Russia. Twice. That happens. Maria thought she might as well join.
God, about Poland. Poland always get, between countries and get, consumed by one or another. And Poland has just rough history in the past, man. Even Hitler's like, what, first thing I'm going to invade is Poland and kill lots of Jews in Warsaw. Poland has always was, worst end of the deal, always in the history of Europe. People like, Poland, and they just consume it. Because it was surrounded by giant countries and they always consume Poland.
Join the fun and get some land as well. Wasn't much else to do anyway. Skip to the French Revolution. Austria was pretty much the only nation who wanted to see this revolution to stop immediately, given the fact that the French queen was part of the Austrian family. That was reasonable, I guess. Austria failed spectacularly though, and Napoleon proceeded to kick both Austria and Prussia so hard they had to readjust their teeth, i.e. reform everything there was to be reformed, including military, economy, and most importantly socially things, like free education and stuff. Franz II crowned himself Emperor of Austria to be of equal height to Emperor Napoleon, which honestly shouldn't have been much of an issue. In return, however, France was forced to put down the crown of the HRE, which from that point on ceased to exist. As Napoleon was gone for good, the great powers of Europe built up some kind of loose alliance against anything revolutionary, which also meant that pretty much anything they built up during the Napoleonic Wars had become something restricted in the sense of, okay guys, you'll get to keep your universities, but we are going to dictate what you are going to learn there, which is fuck all. What did you say? Democracy? Never heard of it. Now, would you be so kind and apply that duct tape on your mouth? Thank you very much. But besides all censorship, especially in the German Federation, the new HRE substitute, the damage was already done. The year's 1848. This time the German Federation is close to become one. I'm cutting this short. Oh, I would love to just ramble on about that time period.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's cutting really short. This is like over simplified. But it is kind of good for, first of all, this is just 11.3 minutes video, alright? Yeah. So, if students watch this, they'll learn more about Austrian history than they're learning about it in school. Sometimes brief history is important before you carry out to major books. I mean, I think schools should, obviously YouTube is becoming big thing, creators are becoming big thing. So I think a school should adopt this policy of things like the animated history videos like this. This oversimplified and videos like that. Epic History TV. Teachers in school should encourage the kids to watch these videos first before carrying on to some other history books, because this will give them generally knowledge of what happened and why happened, and they will learn it in more funny way, even though it's a strong language. Come on, man. Maybe there are some other videos that doesn't have strong language, but this video is fine. So people can learn what happened to Austria and then carry on to learn books. They'll understand it more easily rather than just throwing an entire book and trying to make them understand from point to point in detail history.
Democratic nation. Anyway, the people couldn't quite agree on whether it was going to be a unified Reich with or without Austria, which over the years has grown out of Germany, as the historians would put it. In fact, Austria back in 1848 did not only include German lands but also Hungary, most of the Balkans and some of Italy, so that at last they decided Austria would not become part of Germany. Which didn't matter after all, because both the Prussian king and the Austrian emperor went back after blacking out for a while and managed to put down the revolts.
So that was all pointless.
Aha! So you would think, but it left some important marks. First of all, it became clear that the German nation is only going to happen if someone higher up forms it by force, which is what happens not even 25 years after that. Then
Yes, people, even though that was pointless at the time, people learned what needs to be done to make this happen.
there's the fact that Austria as it was would never be part of said German state. Also, the Hungarians became a bit more cocky and were only to hold in the empire when they were treated as equals. Thus, AustriaHungary was born, a state with two emperors, one Hungarian emperor and one more emperorable emperor of Austria. Honestly, how that abomination managed to survive the next 70 years is beyond me. And then Prussia/Bismarck formed Germany in 1871, on the tears of the Austrians. Not because they at last got kicked out of Germany, but more because they landed face forward in the Balkans and realized that this is a mess that they are not going to be able to fix. Ever. And even though Germany and Austria-Hungary became some kind of best buddies after that, the Balkans will prove to be a burning bag of shit that even combined efforts will not be able to put out. And what happens after that should be known. Both Russia and Germany get some complete idiots as monarchs. Bismarck gets fired and then kicks the bucket. Suddenly everyone hates Germany except of Austria, who got some kind of do whatever the fuck you want I'm in bro oath from Germany. Some Serbians or Bosnians or whatever I should classify them as shoot the Austrian prince, and suddenly all of Europe is on fire.
Yeah, that's the case. When Archduke of Austria got shot, people were already hating Germany. Germany also was kind of hating back, and there was lots of tension going on. So it's like, Archduke of Austria got shot, Germany suddenly, went to effect. Russians started to mobilize to defend Serbia, and Austria obviously declared war because, come on, man, your Archduke just got shot. What are you supposed to do? Oh, it's all chill. Of course, Austria's like, I'm gonna, attack you. Could have done it with, more smarter way. I mean, some guy killed him. It's not like the country attacked or some people rallied against him. Some one guy came and shot him. That's a tragedy, but it's not something you just go over to war. But I guess they did, and Germany suddenly mobilized because Germany knew that everybody would just go against Austria just for they can fight Germany. So Germany knew France, England, everybody would join in. So Germany just basically attacked France before France was even mobilizing or anything, because they just assumed they're gonna join in. So everybody was hating on Germany. Germany was hating also back. So there were lots and lots of tension. The region was already kind of unstable. And there was wars happening in just less than 1 century. There was already 3-4 war already happened there. So World War I was inevitable. And World War I after that, the Treaty of Versailles, they should have done that better. Obviously, I'm like, the South Park character, Captain Hindsight. After everything happened, I'm just telling you what they should have done. But, they should have, been more lenient towards Germany rather than what they did. They're like, we're going to discipline Germany so they never do something. That's not how things work, man. If you, push somebody so far in the side and pressure them, they will bounce back. And that's what they did in World War II. After that, everybody just chilled out. European Union was created and Europe is stable enough right now. I don't see World War III happening anytime soon. At least not with Europe. Maybe they will start in China, Russia, US or something like that.
Austria-Hungary and Germany lost the war. Austria was reduced to what land it's got left today. Also, both weren't allowed to unify. Now listen, boys and girls, here's where the fun starts. Because what happened after that is one of these insane stories that make history nerds like me bust a nut. I'll try to boil it down for you. So Austria, much like Germany, was forced to become a republic, which was neat and all, but such a huge change doesn't really lead anywhere when no one has a fucking clue about how democracy works. The Allies didn't give any help, they only said, just do it for fuck's sake. Germany had it a bit easier in that respect, as Prussia had some kind of, let's call it, pseudo-parliament already established under Bismarck, even though it didn't have any influence whatsoever. But that also meant that the Weimar Republic had some people like Ebert or Stresemann, which were actually capable of leading a democracy, while the Austrians had no one. Now Austria-Hungary actually had a similar pseudo-parliament already established even earlier, but due to cultural differences they were even more useless, and of course a lot of capable politicians left after the end of World War I to form their own national parliaments, like in Czechoslovakia for example. That and the economic situation during the 20s led to the politicians being more than just busy trying to fix the shambles the Habsburgers have left behind. The police was absolutely overstrained as well, as radical communists and the NSDAP started protesting and rioting on a larger scale. At some point people actually didn't want to leave their houses, not just because of the fascists, but rather because there might have been a chance to get caught up in a demonstration and then shot at by stressed out policemen. That happened. Apparently the government gave the order to—
Oh my god, yeah, that did happen. People were just walking down the street and they're like just, just to make an example, people just shot them on the street. That's just effed up. And people, it happens so much that like people like just saw that happen, no general public saw that happen, just went by their day like, yeah, it happened. Imagine right now people just some pull out some people and just shoot it and claiming that they were spies or something, or communist fascists, and just shoot them without any evidence, and you just see it for you it's like every day and just walk off. How effed up the society is at that time. That's just screwed up thing happened. Obviously things like that, and then world was also pressuring things obviously on Germans because what they did in World War One. Hitler was inevitable. That was going to, if it wasn't Hitler, it would have been someone else, I'm pretty sure. It wouldn't have the effect of Hitler, obviously. It would have been some smaller scale. Hitler was too effed up. But somebody was about to rally the Germans up to World War II. That was inevitable. But since it was Hitler, and Hitler was really effed up, it just became one of the most worst and deadliest war than anything. World War I cannot even come close to the death count that World War II left.
To that in a sudden rush of shit to the brain. Hundreds died. But wait, there's more! While Germany voted itself out of democracy, Engelbert Dollfuss, a conservative Democrat and at the time Chancellor, kinda slipped and accidentally dissolved the parliament. Well, he'll go on and say the parliament had dissolved itself, that cheeky bastard. The point is, it made him alone the leader of Austria. Screams by the people to restore the parliament were just shrugged off by President Miklas, basically saying, the hell do I know? And after a short civil war, Dollfuss, now officially dictator, began to restructure the country in a kind of fascist but not quite Nazi way in hope it would stay independent from Germany. Well, we'll never know his true motives because he himself would eventually be murdered during a failed Nazi coup d'etat in 1934. Austria, finding itself under more and more pressure by Hitler, got Anschluss 4 years later. Then World War II happened. Yeah. Still with me? After the war, Austria was split between the Allies, much like Germany. They managed to reinstall the country in 1954, once again as—
Obviously he's jumping around because he's talking about Austria's history and not talking about World War. But World War II happened, and then after the war, that's a massive jump right there, because let's just say before World War II, European countries were different. After World War II, whatever was left was completely different. Anybody who had some egos or anybody who was had any tensions, that all went away because there was such horrible war. Tons of people died and everybody was in just shambles. Every country, Russia, Britain, France, obviously Germany, Austria, and everybody was they had so much enough that even today there is no other world war. Even Germany and everybody like, what, that was a bit too much, let's not do it again.
Republic, once again not allowed to join together with Germany as one country. Not that we would want to, I guess both the Germans and the Austrians are pretty much fed up with that idea. Even the Soviets agreed to hand over their control zone, unlike in Germany, most likely because they didn't give much of a shit about Austria, which pretty much settled the tone for anything that was to come. Austria nowadays is really nothing but a footnote in international politics. The only time they can feel important now is when the season for winter sports is coming. Really, that's like the only thing they have left. Well, that and the refugee crisis.
So aren't there any rivalries or stuff?
Well, that's a stupid question. Well, kid, rivalries in modern Europe are more like something people express during international football matches. But if you really want to know, for us Germans, Austria is a country.
Oh my god, that's so true. Football World Cup and things like that happen. You need to see the level of tension there are between two type of people. It's like they're fighting a war or something. The first time I witnessed that, I'm like, god damn, and that's heavy.
Where we can go on vacation without the annoying side effect of people not speaking our language. The Balkans think of Austria as some kind of fossilized empire that doesn't do shit anymore. The French always had some kind of love-hate relationship to Austria, much like the French and the English, and the French and the Dutch, or the French and the Bavarians, or the French and any kind of Germans, really. It would appear, though, as if France has finally hit puberty and now is most of the time busy arguing with itself, so that the only ones left are the former Ottomans. Yes, Turkey and Austria from time to time just like to stare at each other when no one else is looking in memory of the good old days. Only that both of them have gotten quite old and are staring at each other from really, really far away. That's all? Great.
Is this going to be on the test?
No idea what you mean. No, honestly, they didn't even give me a schedule.
So that was absolutely useless?
Well, if you're asking me like that. Yes! Haha! Later, suckers!
I mean, it's history, man. Whether it's on test or not, it's good to learn history. This is a great channel, man. I love the tone of it. Look at the kids. Kids cannot give a two shit about this. And teacher like, you idiots. This is the history you need. Just shut up and listen to it. I love this channel. Yeah, there was great, man. All the history broken down in really small period of time. Yeah, there's Austria for you. Alright, people. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe.